So, in the wake of all the tariffs, the Doge efficiency cuts, the sweeping changes, like the Gulf of Mexico becoming the Gulf of America, who wants to be patriotic for a government that defunds itself? You know, we have these programs that help our people, that help aid research. And it's very easy to put them up on a one sentence pedestal and say, and summate them in a malicious way, which I think pretty obvious in what's happening there. I'm not saying that there was some that were not unreasonable. I'm sure there was waste. I'm sure there were programs that were stupid, that were very politically pointed. But when you come out saying that programs that use basic scientific methods and normal experimental action, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, that they have some sort of agenda behind them, it's kind of strange. Kind of sounds like you're just maybe against science, or you just want to cut as much money as possible and you don't really have any care for where that money comes from. Yeah, you just want to get it out, just shut down. Which, if that's the mentality that we just want to rein in government and get rid of it, and that's kind of what I'm getting at, is who wants to be patriotic for a government that does nothing? Yet if you walk around a big city, there are these massive skyscrapers, there are all these roads, and there are these public transportation systems that move people to their jobs, that move people to fund all these stores, that move money around, that, it's a public good that a lot of people use, a lot of common people, a lot of working class people. And these things are basically giant toilets, because no one maintains them and nobody gives homeless people a place to go. So where do they go? They go down to these transit systems and they try to sleep. They try to use them as bathrooms because no one will let them use their bathrooms. So you get people who, you get these places and they're just dirty. And the trains and buses haven't been upgraded. And when they do upgrade them, there is truly nothing new about them besides the material they're made out of. There's no innovation. There's no luxury for the people who are taking them. Everything is just these cookie cutter pieces. And so it's like, what is there to be proud of in this public service? In some places, it's even been privatized, so it's not even a public service. It's a company that works with the government or the state or the city. So it's like, what is the government actually doing? And in that sense, if you start feeling that way and following that trend, you're going to live in a place where there is no government. I don't think we want to get to that state, What is there to unify a country if everything is sold off to the corporation? You think about it. Let's pull these threads a little bit. Let's say that there is some kind of incentive for the Republican Party and the tech billionaires that sat behind President Trump and the tech billionaire that is on, his right-hand man in this specially created, commandeered, if you will, government department that, used to just be about web services. Now it's being used to hijack bank accounts from government employees and from normal citizens, it seems. Literally, they are just taking money out of places by their own authority. There is no law, there is no legal justification for what they're doing. They are just taking the money out of people's accounts or out of government accounts and reallocating it, or stopping checks, stopping the ability for people to use their credit cards for these expenses. It's really a chaos engine into government programs. And so let's say that these people really do want to get out of, they want government out as much as possible. Let's say and I don't know how much this was floated. I've seen a couple articles on it and read into it a little bit, but it's kind of hard to tell sometimes. I don't know if you're aware of this in the media biases, when something is just kind of created as a story and it surfaces, people talk about it, but there isn't really much structure behind it. It's almost like they're just kind of testing. Someone is trying to test an idea out, or just literally someone had an idea and for some reason it's gaining traction in the media cycle, but the consequences of it, or the people who are mentioned in it and maybe said these one-off comments or things like that, it's not part of their big agenda. But I've been seeing things about this idea of freedom cities, which would be corporate controlled areas. Basically they don't have to obey the same laws as other states or cities. They have their own, and they're controlled by, much like a corporation is controlled. Now, this doesn't mean necessarily that the corporation would be a standing corporation, but let's just think about it. Let's say this is the only alliance between these competitors, seemingly. All the people who sat behind Trump. Think about that for a second. Who are these people? Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, the guy who is in charge of Google and Microsoft. I can't remember their names right now. These other tech giants, what do they all have in common? They're all cloud service providers. They all work in the AI space. They're competitors. Their products compete against each other, in this space for market share of compute power that's owned by business, of database storage that is used by other companies. Their AI services are going to be in competition with each other, buying up companies that do similar things, and they're competing with each other for those companies. So why are they all in cahoots behind the president? You have to wonder that a little bit of what are they all uniting on in this? And from my perspective, it's tax breaks. It is less regulation of business. It is the ability for them to legislate and let go of some of the restrictions that former administrations had put on them because they felt like their products were causing societal ills that they had to make up for. They like to move fast and break things, and they like to get a exponential, quick growth. And sometimes that requires breaking things and harming people. And they want to do that more freely. But, one could surmise maybe they are trying to wrest control of the areas where they have their accumulated industries. Is there one day, could you imagine a world where Meta, Alphabet, Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA, all these companies that have billions and billions of dollars out in all in the kind of same area where they kind of annex the many communities along the Western Seaboard? Could you imagine a Tesla or Joe Rogan comedy Kill Tony Enterprises annexing Texas with the help of wherever the fucking punchable faced governor or senator or whoever from Texas is this time of year, in this time of my life? Maybe a contiguous federation of Amazon-owned corporate cities full of workers and offices. Jeff Bezos could travel between all of them on his private planes and yachts. What would stop them? Let's say this place exists. What stops them from leveraging war against each other for more resources? What stops them from going to war with Canada, like our president seems to want to deal with Canada and Panama and Greenland? The imperial nationalistic view of the world isn't that old. It's not like it's been It's not like it's you get points taken off for being pro that, even though it has led to some of the worst wars and tragedies in human history. That type of behavior, nationalism that forces other countries to become more nationalistic. Yeah, look at these tariffs. Think about it. Trump himself, against the advisement of most of the, economists, against the advisements of many of the opposition party, has put in tariffs on most of our allies in the world. Think about that. We are friends. We gain from each other existing and protecting each other. And Trump is basically just destroying those relationships, or trying to actively destroy those relationships single-handedly. And with his cabinet, is quite literally a wrecking ball to these decade and sometimes century-long political friendships. And, it seems like for the most part, the leaders of the world see it for what it is, that this is a Trump derangement problem, not a American. The majority of Americans support these kind of initiatives because they don't. If you think about it, if we have our voter turnout being so low to the point where, 60 to 70% of people vote. So you have a whole third of people potentially who don't vote, or close to that. And when we become so polarized, it's not like, oh, well, the half of the people that voted for Kamala Harris, or whatever Democrat versus Republican. You can get back to the 2016 election or whenever in 2020. It's not like they're close. It's not like it's like, oh, well, I'm fine that Donald Trump won. I'm sure there's some people who think that, or who think that didn't really matter and still voted one way or the other. But I think a lot of them, it's like, I oppose those views, and send me on the other side, So what we're really seeing is democracy being used to empower a minority, very strong, very vocal, very collected, and productive minority. They're efficient. They're a bludgeon. They know what they're doing, and they play to their advantage all the time. And the opportunity is striking for them to take the political will that they have and exploit one of the fundamental flaws of our democracy, which is that, it can be a small active minority can really take a lot of power. And if there's an executive who is willing to overextend his reach, it's just really a test of the system. And those systems are either slow moving when you're speaking the legal system, or sometimes they can be very extreme. If you talk about potentially something like an assassination attempt, or something like a government, threatening government shutdown. There's the progressive, what are the Democrats wanting a government shutdown? They wanted this to be very clear. This was a Trump shutdown. And the more moderate wing of the Democrats, as per their usual, this is, to me, the definition of the moderate Democratic wing is that they cave. They always do. They always do. And the Republicans know they will, so they never have to cave. And this is an exploit. It's basically like a cheat in a video game. You just realize, it's like you realize a weapon is overpowered. Like shotguns are OP or whatever on Stakeout. And then all you do is you play Stakeout 24/7 with a shotgun on the highest level. And all you do is look for the spawn points. You learn the spawn points. You hide in the vents. You just exploit, 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 exploit. And that is what the Republicans do, and the Democrats do not exploit ever, unless they are doing something probably dirty, like exploiting, like sex workers or something, or uh, exploiting the stock market for their own financial gain. It really is a situation where, both sides are just full of people who care about nobody but themselves. They don't care about the American people at all. All they think about is enriching themselves and their supporters. They don't give a shit about the normal American person, or the fact that, that we are all one nation and one globe. More importantly, we all live on the same earth. And if anyone screws up too much, we all have to bear the consequences. So we are one human population when you come down to it. Maybe that makes me a globalist demon or something, but I wouldn't say I'm a globalist either, because I wouldn't want there to be like one global government. Just that we all work together to make sure the whole world is as good as it could possibly be, instead of just worrying about our own national interests. And I think Trump as a president, especially with his tariffs and his policies, just show so nakedly that he is interested in America first, and that means other countries get the fuck out of the way and worry about yourself, and that makes them be more nationalistic or create other ties that don't involve America that will be very hard to get back into, even if we experience some kind of radical shift to the left, which personally I don't see coming. I honestly am a bit of a doomer here. And getting back to my original topic of just like, I don't want to live in a government where we see Trump take a third term, usurping this rule of law even more than he already has. Of course, he's going to try to seek one. If you really don't think he's going to, I don't know. It would have to be some kind of worse alternative, like he nominates his son as his successor or something, and says now everyone support Eric and donates everything to him or whatever. I don't know which one of the sons is less retarded. I can't remember. Whichever one is that, then that's the one that he would give the money to. So or something where it's like, JD Vance and Pat Robertson. I don't even know, is Pat Robertson still alive? The corpse of Pat Robertson is reanimated by, his son, and the corpse and the son together running as co-vice presidents to JD Vance. So, like, that would be a worse situation. So any of those alternatives, would just be equally horrible. But I really could see that happening, and the wave of political malaise that is over the country is something that I think is just opportune for a vocal minority that has an agenda and has political will and political capital and knows how to get things done, that they can just exploit. And unfortunately, I saw this coming the last time I said on the election night. I'll never forget that I said they are not going to leave. They're not going to let him leave office, and he's not going to want to. And everybody thought I was crazy. And what happened on January 6th? They didn't let him leave office, and you did nothing to stop them from trying to stop him from leaving office. And this time, I think, if you think he's going to try any less hard, or his supporters are going to try any less hard, I don't know where you're getting that impression. I would love to hear about it, because, tell me about it, because maybe it would be some optimism. I just don't foresee them being any less passionate and efficient about trying to get him to stay in office, which, if you remember last time, their plan was to kidnap senators and things like that. So if I just hope there's a lot of security on the Capitol Hill on January 6, 2028, right? I don't know. I'm not good at math. Um, so that way we know um, if something like that were to happen, there would be a defense because I don't see where they would get off not trying again. And who wants to live in a country like that? Who wants to live in a country where one of the parties is actively trying to overthrow the government every 4 years? Isn't that a little tiring? Isn't that a little bad for business, even on their part? Maybe it's not. Maybe that's the goal, is to overthrow it and make it good for business so that, you have to work like a slave. So you have to be an indentured servant to your job until you make enough money through investing and asset claiming and being a dick landlord and buying up properties that you don't need besides to make passive income, or becoming a slop pipeline where all you do is lie to people and kind of like give them false hope and say whatever you want and get paid a ton in advertising money for that. So, one of the things I think really just represents this commitment to, really just, all the stops pulled out. I don't know if it was actually the official Donald Trump account. I ain't looking into it too much. On my Instagram feed, I got one of their AI characters that came up, and it was called Truth AI. And it was a middle-aged white man avatar with an American flag behind him in a suit. And it said, understand they're like the ins and outs of conservative values, understand the insights of American conservative values, or something like that. It's called Truth AI. And it said created by Donald Trump. It could have been like Donald Trump fanboy or something, whatever. Like I said, I didn't look into it that hard, but just it appearing there was like, man, this is the way they feel. It's the conservative values is the truth. And if you don't think so, well, then fuck you. And that's not American to me. That's not what democracy is about. That's not what this country is about. It's not what I'm about. And it's a pretty dismal state of affairs. And I don't know many people who would want to live in a place that is so aggressive and affrontive towards other people in the opposition and the fairness and the rule of law. So, it's a negative position to be in. And maybe I'm just being a negative Nancy, but I feel like I just have these dreams at night. I go to sleep and I wake up and the Meta, Alphabet, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, and corporate.com Western Seaboard Federation and the Tesla, Rogan, Kill Tony enterprises have annexed Texas and the Panhandle. These Amazon states, these Amazon cities, with their legions of electric vehicles and drones are constantly fighting with each other in Canada and Mexico for more territory and more resources. And there is no one to stop them but the militaries of other countries, because there is no American military anymore. There is no American government. It's all been sold off and annexed to these countries that are corporate countries. So it leaves me wondering things and wondering dreams, like how may I craft my prompts today so one day when I'm pleading to the robot dogs not to shoot, at least I can say I was kind. I never promised them millions of dollars or that I would shoot their kids if I didn't get a good answer to my prompt. But maybe these billionaires and my dreams, maybe it's actually a good life that I wake up screaming from, getting it all hashed out behind the closed doors. Maybe when the warships from the Free State of Northrop Grumman blockade the 51st state of Greenland, and it's America's last stronghold against these corporate overlords. Will we have had enough winning? Maybe they'll ask President Grok, and he'll confer with Ambassador GPT and Judge Gemini and Senator Claude protesting in the corner, even him. Will they reach the best outcome for humanity? Certainly. They'll just ask Russia and China nicely for a few more slices of Middle East and then maybe some of the European countries to add to the joint Israel-Lockheed Martin demilitarized zone sponsored by Walmart. If they don't get it, they'll ask again, and when the rebel groups take dozens of hostages, they'll just bomb them out of existence, saying it was fair retaliation. Russia will threaten to nuke what was once Paris. Finally, a ceasefire will come when they get half the land they originally wanted, and there have only been hundreds of thousands of casualties of people who had nothing to do with it at all. Well, that's just the art of the deal, I would say. Thank you for listening, and think for yourself, as long as it's dank.
It is imperative to the success of this great nation that you like and subscribe bigly to this channel, okay? Can we do that, folks? Can we get out there and like and subscribe? Benjamin Dankly is a great name, named after one of our founders. What a guy.